Ladies and gents, you have arrived at Next Level Radio, back at it with, and this was kind of cool too, you're the first duo, you're the first second guest, so live across the country and your first second guest. So today, ladies and gents, you've heard me bullshit, you've heard me introduce, but we have on again Bryce Meredith, and for people that didn't hear the first one, go back and listen to it, push pause, go back and listen to that one because we're going to feed off of kind of what we did off that last one. Talking background in wrestling. Right at that point, you were just thinking about going in and just getting into MMA. So it'll be a good one, but just introduce yourself, man. We'll go from there.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Bryce Meredith here again. The second time. Let's go. The first time we talked a lot about wrestling and how I was going into MMA, but now I was a two-time NCAA finalist in wrestling, a three-time All-American at the University of Wyoming, but now I am a professional MMA fighter. I had my first fight May 21st. We're at a first-round TKO, so I'm 1-0 there, and hopefully a whole bunch more and O's coming.
Yes, sir. I watched the fight. That guy had quite a few fights in that league, correct? 11 or something like that?
So it was kind of, it's most people, they get to go through an amateur career. They get to have some amateur fights that really don't count on your actual career. And then they get to step into the professional realm. So for me, in one breath, it's a blessing that I get to, my career can go a little bit faster than maybe other people, but then also that comes with a weight and a cost. So, I've never been in an MMA fight. I've never been in a boxing match outside of sparring or with your buddies in the backyard. And my first fight was with a guy that was 5-6. So he has 5 first-round finishes, 11 pro fights, I think 17 or 18 MMA fights in total. Damn. So he's very, very experienced. So there was for sure, a little nerve and stress on that just because he's a lot more experienced in a cage than I was. We kind of knew that he was very capable of losing, right? He had a lot of first-round losses as well, too. So that's kind of what allowed us to take that fight for my first one ever. But, for sure, there was a lot of people that were wondering what the heck I was doing my first MMA fight like that.
And, honestly, looking back now, that's a make-or-break fight. Like, you jump, you miss the amateur track, go straight to that. That's a make-or-break. You got to win that one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the thing about being a high-level wrestler is, of course, you do have a very good foundation in fighting, but also it's a different sport. A lot of people are just like, oh, you're good at wrestling? Oh, that just makes it assume that you're good at fighting. And at one time, it used to be a little bit more true, but MMA is really, really grown, and it is mixed martial arts now. So for me to just, jump in there as a wrestler, so many people will be like, oh, you're such a good wrestler, you're going to be a UFC champion. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the goal by the end, but until I get there, man, I have to learn how to throw a punch. I have to learn how to kick. So
how to take a punch.
Yeah, man, you got to learn a lot of stuff. And so there's a lot of weird pressure that comes along with being a high-level wrestler. But then also, you are fortunate for the base that you do have.
Yeah, man. It was lead us up to kind of that fight. Like, how does everything transpire from, picking the fight, camp, lead us up to kind of that?
Yeah, okay. So I moved out to Phoenix about a year ago. And so I was starting to do my MMA training after the Olympics got canceled in 2020. I decided, man, maybe this is a good time. Maybe this is, God willed this into an existence for me to go into MMA. So I moved out there, and then a couple months later, or a month in, we started having all these money matches in wrestling, right? Kind of pay-per-view money matches.
Yeah.
And so, wow, of course I'm going to do that, getting paid per match in wrestling where we don't normally ever have that. So then I got kind of pulled back into the wrestling world, which was cool for a little bit. But then come December 18th, I wrestled James Green and lost that match. And from then I was like, you know what? If we're going to do this, we can't half-ass it. We better get going. Mm-hmm. So I went for about 5 months of just strictly MMA. So even that's not that long of training, right? 5.5 months before your first fight. But so I started training, just kind of trying to feel where we were at. We found out that the LFA in South Dakota was going to have fans on May 21st. And we were like, I think that's a perfect time to try to set up a fight. We start kind of looking 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, still don't have an opponent, right? There's nobody that was signing on to fight me in that fight, and that doesn't mean that there's nobody out there for me to fight. There's probably a guy that would be 8-0 that would love to fight a guy that hasn't, but it does mean that somebody that is in the earlier parts of their career did not want to sign to fight me as an 0-0 guy with the high wrestling accolades. So that was kind of crazy. We're kind of dealing with that. And then my coach walks in. He goes, "Hey, we found you an opponent. You guys 5-6, but I think he knows how to lose as well." And I said it. I was like, 5-6? I thought we were going to like trying to find somebody that was like 2-3 or so, somebody that was like way lower. But I was just like, hey, man, I kind of trust my coaches. They've been at it a lot longer than I have. And I haven't been in an actual cage fight, so it's not like it's coming out of my arrogance thinking, oh, I have this. They were the ones that were like, let's set this up. And, of course, my management is signing on and doing all that kind of stuff. But even they said at one point, they were like, that wasn't quite the first fight that we were looking for, but good job when it happened. But so we were training. You train really hard, and then it kind of depends on where you train, but also how in good a shape you are. You either probably do an 8-week camp or a 6-week camp. And really all that means is you're doing exactly what you're doing every single day. But one, you obviously are getting way more strict with your nutrition. Yeah. If you are somebody that drinks a little bit, you're probably going to stop doing that once you get into camp. And then your cage rounds, right? So we do a lot of striking outside of the cage. And when you're outside of the cage, let's just say that's a 60 to 70% spar. Yeah. Sometimes it, of course, elevates and you get in a fist fight with people. But when you're outside of the cage, you try to keep it a little bit more practice, You're still fighting, but you're practice-esque. And then when you do cage rounds, that's when it's pretty much full. Like, you're still not being ridiculous and trying to really knock out your partners and your teammates, but you're in a fight, right? Like, you get more nervous when you get locked in the cage. And then when you're in those camps, let's just say it's like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, or whatever it is, you do different amounts of rounds. So maybe it's 2 rounds back-to-back where somebody else is coming in on you, and then you do 3 rounds, so then you're doing a whole fight simulation where you do that. So then it just kind of depends on who you are, what you're doing, and everything like that. So you start doing that, and then next thing you know, you're 10 days out, and the weight cut begins. And weight cutting is a little bit different for sure because you have 36 hours in MMA. Compared to wrestling, you only have 1 or 2 hours, depending on if it's a duel or a tournament. So 36 hours, way different. You can cut your weight.
Replenish a little bit.
Yeah, you can replenish. You can cut your weight. I mean, you can suck everything out of you for fighting because I was trying to get down to 135, where I normally wrestle at 41 or 43. So you're going another,
walking
5,
around
6.
45, 40, 50?
Yeah, 55.
Yeah,
when I'm eating and training good. Yep. If I'm not training as good, I actually get lighter just because I think my muscles, and I don't eat as much, because you're not training as much. But, yeah, if I'm in camp, it's pretty close to 55. So you're doing about a 20-pound cut.
Yeah.
So that's no joke. But you get a water load a little bit differently. So, and you're only doing it a couple times a year, too. Exactly. So I think minus maybe the last 12 hours, I think it's actually good for you. I think you're doing a type of fast that can be healthy for you. You're on a good diet for a long time. Obviously, I don't know if, the last 8 pounds of water is
that's tough.
Good for you.
That's tough. But I think for people that are outside of the wrestling world too, like wrestling cutting weight's different because you gotta weigh in your wrestling. If you're a 103 pounder, 125 pounder, you're wrestling within the hour. So it gets pretty brutal. I guess I knew that you had that day, but that helps a lot, dude. A lot. For people that don't know, you're at the MMA lab in Phoenix, correct? Some high-level fucking guys out of there, dude. Man. Yeah, you guys got some dogs there.
Yeah, killers. So for the people that don't know, the easiest way to put this, we have 4 guys at my weight, which is 135. We have 4 guys in the UFC alone. So that's the upper echelon of fighting. So we have 4 guys. 3 of them are probably in the top 20, top 22 ranked. So the fact that we have 3 guys in the top 25, let's just say, at my weight in general is pretty freaking incredible. I don't think really any gym is producing anything like that. And then you keep going down the line, and we have his name's Tank. He's got a Brazilian name, but I have a hard time with it. But he was, he's a couple-time ADCC champion. He fought in the UFC. He's moving up to 145 now, but he's about one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the last 20 years at our weight as well. You got me, who's, pretty high level in wrestling at our weight in that gym. And then you got another 5 to 7 135ers that are all 1-0, 3-0, 4-1 type guys. So we have about like 8 or 10 dudes that are pretty successful and killing it at 135. So I don't think this is a biased statement. It might be, but I'm pretty sure that we have the best gym in the world at 135. Yeah. And I think it used to be maybe Team Alpha Male, but I don't even know if that's the case anymore.
And where are they out of?
they're out of California. That's like Uriah Faber and all those guys. But I don't know if that's true anymore.
When he was at his prime, probably, for sure, definitely. But having in the wrestling room at UW, you guys, when you guys were there, you guys had a room. You guys had a room of really good guys, and I think that's what helped elevate you. Is obviously a mental mindset, but you guys have, and I don't know if he trains there 100% of the time, but Sean O'Malley comes by quite a bit, correct? Yep. Is he part of that team as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So fighting's a little bit weird, and it gets different. So, Sean does most of his sparring and does everything with that, but he also has Tim Welch, which is like his left-hand man, and his coach and stuff. So they end up doing a lot of stuff on their own outside of things where partners need to do it. And as people start fighting more and more, and this isn't for everybody, because Benson Henderson's at my gym, and that guy, when he's healthy, he's sparring every day with everybody all the time, right? He just loves to get up in the fight. But sometimes as other people get better, they start sparring way less, and they only spar in camp. Some people nowadays you're seeing not even spar in camp, which
cut down that mileage a little bit.
Yeah, which in one breath, it's an amazing thing, I think, because people are starting to realize saving their brains as they're progressing, but also it's kind of diluting the minds of people that are newer to the game. Like
you need that time.
Yeah, like me, our coach said it. He was like, hey, all you guys, if you're an amateur or early pro, you don't get to sit out sparring rounds unless you got if you get cracked or injured or something like that. But he's like, you're not Max Holloway. You haven't been fighting professionally in the UFC for 12 years now.
Yeah.
You don't get to make that decision
I think he took a kind of a stand originally and said I'm never sparring anymore.
Yeah.
Hardly at all. I know quite a bit of people have done that. But what's your coach's pedigree, man? Who is your coach and kind of his pedigree behind?
So my coach is my head coach. His name is John Crouch. He's kind of like one of the, he's a legendary coach. If you're watching any of the UFC events, the commentators are always like, oh, there's legendary John Crouch over there. He's bred a lot of world champions and Benson Henderson and some other people that, I'm not the best with names,
You good.
But yeah, you know how it is. And so he's been in the game for a long, long time. And once again, he's just such an amazing guy at creating a very productive team atmosphere, right? He's a black belt, real legendary in jiu-jitsu underneath the Gracies and everything like that. And then my striking coach right now is Randy Stanky. And, man, I've talked to a lot of people. He's worked, with world champs, with Henry Cejudo, with Kelvin Gastelum, and some other people. And he's, he's new to the coaching. He retired just a couple years ago. But he's, new to full-time coaching. And I've been very fortunate and blessed to have other people on the outside that have no connection with him say, I've been around him a few times, and they go, that's about as good of a coach as you're ever going to find. Yeah. So, as somebody coming in, you don't really know what's happening, so that's my main striking coach. But we have, like I said, you got Tank in there that can help you with jiu-jitsu. We got a bunch of other people that are helping out, and man, yeah.
How does that progress? So you would just happen to be living in Phoenix, or you just moved for that? How was the connection into the MMA lab? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I had a teammate that wrestled at the University of Wyoming. His name is Mike Hamill. He was out there, and then I started just kind of hearing about a lot of good dudes that were at that gym. So I went to a couple other gyms and looked at them, and they were great. They were doing their jobs, but nobody had that many 135-pounders in a room that were that good.
Savages.
Being managed by a coach that isn't batshit crazy, right? Because a lot of times in UFC or in MMA and at these gyms, right, you can go and you can find some savage gyms, but they're kind of dudes that maybe they're just beating the hell out of each other every day. Real prideful gyms. People aren't really working together. And, I get that because there's a lot of pride in fighting, but also it's a pretty dangerous game to be playing. So I went there. I saw them. I saw the coaches. I saw the teammates, and for some reason, it was crazy because I kind of just did it off a snap, and it was kind of like, like I said, kind of like a God push. I just felt like it was right. Everywhere else I went, I was like, this is cool, but I just kind of had this butt in the back of my head, and it pushed me in that direction, and I've been very fortunate, and I haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, man. a lot of people, I've got to be around some, you included, but people don't realize in MMA, and not even just the UFC, MMA as a whole, you're having 4 to 5 different coaches. You have a sparring coach, you have your jiu-jitsu coach. Biggest thing that I'm interested in too, I've been checking out your strength coach, Brandon, correct?
Yes. Brandon.
Yeah, man. Great cat, has great philosophies. And so I'm just I'm interested in that shit. How was that transpired? How was that changed from, say, burning it the fuck down when you're at UW instead of actually now having a strength coach that's really getting after it?
Yeah, man. So Brandon's been, once again, quite a blessing for me as well. You know how it is in college sports. I think it got really Olympic weightlifting style, and I think it got pushed into that for all sports. And I think that's just kind of, I don't even know if it's all the strength coach's faults or whatever. I just think that's kind of what college was doing, and it was pushing. And I think that's fine, and I think it's, it's good for a lot of people, but especially as you get older and more that we're learning about, the body, and, of course, I know what you're doing with a lot of people and stuff, but it's these functional patterns, it's this functional movements, and like when I go there, I'm not just going in there and just lifting all this heavy weight and just burning myself out all the time, right? Like, it's actually pretty cool. A lot of times I can watch my Whoop heart rate thing, and I can see exactly what he was planning with my heart rates, whether if it's going up and going down, or we're going up, staying there for a while, then going down. And it's like pretty cool. Like I can almost see it perfectly to how I think his brain was working going into the workout.
Damn.
And he's just been very, very focused on, breath work, being in the moment, you know what I mean? Like we'll go in there and we'll set our intentions before we go, and we'll get over our breath, whether that's like almost like that hyperventilate. I don't even know what it's called, but like ramping ramping yourself up or ramping yourself down. And then we'll do we'll do things where it's like a round, and then he'll be like, all right, this is your minute before, like just like it would be your minute in between a period of a fight. So now, or a round. And then now he's like, and so he's been really great. My body was feeling amazing going into that camp, going into the fight. It was actually looking really amazing too. I was pretty stoked about how I started looking. And that's just like a testament to him. And he does a really good job. He's always trying to figure out the puzzle, which, I think all strength coaches are, because the puzzle of an MMA fighter and the puzzle of a football player obviously going to be way different, right? Like it's a completely different sport. And he's very focused on trying to figure that out. And he's always willing to change his ideas. And he doesn't just marry ideas and he's stuck on them. Yeah. So he's been, man. Shouts out to Brandon, man. Thank you so much. I'll be home on Monday. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. It's cool to see that that dynamic of now that really taking over. That it is a piece. It's not as important, but just damn near as important as having a striking coach, a jiu-jitsu coach. And one thing that I got from him that I really like too, that exactly what I do with all athletes. He has a very big emphasis, and I'm sure he has a mentor. My mentor's Cal Dietz out of Minnesota. Held as highly the best strength coach ever, just a godfather. But he talks about triphasic training. So I saw him do some stuff with you and Sean, isometric contractions, eccentric contractions, and really focusing on what do you need in the ring, because all the strength coach needs to do, and I really like that you said he sets intentions. So every day we have a goal. So I just sent one of my athletes, he's signed with Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So he plays up in the CFL. Every day he came in, said, this is the goal today, okay? Whatever we do, violent speed. We have to have that. And so it's really cool to see that has really taken over, because who was it that just fought? Poirier. His strength coach is very up in the news cycle, and he's a really good strength coach, but he's done great work with that. And that's that last round. That's if you can mimic, my biggest thing, I used to have just a football brain. It was like, I got to get people big and strong. Well, it's completely changed from that, and it's all about how can we tie everything together? How can we bring every single aspect, nutrition, strength and conditioning? And biggest thing is everybody thinks just strength.
Yep.
We need that, especially in what you guys are doing. Yeah. Especially, man. So I've enjoyed watching that from a side, because he seems like knows what he's talking about. Yep. One thing also that we do, how has that breath? I mean, we use breath work. We use the Wim Hof method. So 30, if you're thinking about your breaths, 100% in the nose, about 50% short breath out, repeat 30, and then hold your breath for as long as you can. biggest thing with that is if you think about that, if you would have used that in wrestling, like calming the nervous system down, game changer.
For sure.
Have you had pretty decent work with that with him?
Yeah, man. We've started stepping into it, whether it's Wim Hof, and I'm, trying to do 3 rounds of holding my breath as long as I can. Like you said, 30 seconds.
Takes a while.
30 breaths is what I would always do, and it's kind of crazy. You kind of get trippy and weird off it, so that's cool. We also do, what is it, like cycle breath, where it's like 3 in, hold for 3 seconds, 3 out, or whatever that is. Those 2, like I said, we do like that amping it up, where you're just you're almost like hyperventilating just to try to get your body to wake up. Yeah. And then the last thing that was pretty fun, kind of your last statement, and then I'll pull it back into the breathing. So what because I had wrestling mindset, and all wrestlers are really good at is just doing a lot in a short period of time. More. I'm supersetting 40 freaking different workouts, and we're doing it for 30 minutes as hard as we can, and all it is just output. And he kind of got to where he brought me in. He was just like, man, you work out to almost a fatigue failure in the morning, and you do it in the afternoon. 3-4 times a week, twice a day, right? And then those other 2 days when you only have one workout and now you're in here with me, he's like, my goal is not for you to just have that wrestling, burn down, whatever. So that's where it's gotten like really unique for me, because I thought I was just going to go in there and he's going to put me through these crazy workouts where you're looking like you're on a highlight video all the time or whatever. But instead, I'm like doing these slow, focused movements and stuff. And so that's been really nice. And then also, pushing that into the breathing like you were talking about, we'll do things on Aerodyne or whatever where I hold my breath for 8 to 10 seconds at full max, stop, try to get back on top of my breath as fast as I can, right? And you're trying to do it nasally. Of course, I lose it for a second, but then I try to get back on my nostril breathing, and then you do another round. And so and his logic behind it or whatever is now you can get more cardiovascular endurance with less strain on the body. Like you don't need to be running 40 freaking sprints up a hill. We can get on these and do a little bit less, and obviously you still have your times on those hills.
Oh yeah.
But so that's been really, really unique and really fun for me to kind of, like you said, like you had your football mind and I mean, I can see it in your training and how you are doing it as a coach, and it's becoming very, very unique and very puzzle-like too. So it's been really fun to watch you as I feel like, I'm starting to get the benefits of somebody that understands it a little bit too, because, we can't be together as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you said it's a puzzle. You have to put so many things together. It's became a true profession. Cal Dietz out of Minnesota, they're doing a lot of, with all different athletes, but and you've seen it, taping the mouth shut, forcing the nasal breathing. That shit gets crazy. And then bringing it back to the mentality of 2 that intermingle, high-level military and wrestling, 2 very common people. And a lot of strength coaches in both of those realms, it's damage control, to be honest. Because you think about practice, and if you think about it just from an energy system, either anaerobic or aerobic, you're burning it down until complete failure. You're going through burns, we're drilling, we're sparring, you're going through a complete failure. So your hormones get jacked up. So we have a hormonal response and we get addicted to that. That's how you were bred. You know what I'm saying? So now if we can switch that and look at, we just need to get done what we need to get done. We need to have a very specific focus. Dude, it's huge. And people don't realize it. They think exactly what you were thinking. Like, I'm in here just trying to get people big. I don't care. The looks come along the journey. You know what I'm saying? So it's something I've had to battle with.
I have a question for you. So, and I heard about this, and I'm not sure what if it's true or what happens. But so, like in my type of situation where it's very intense and you're almost fighting people, right? And you're gonna have adrenaline dumps, and you're gonna have these huge testosterone spikes from it. So when I'm spiking my testosterone so much, sometimes I feel like my testosterone's so low as a 26-year-old man when I'm not in those, because I think I'm dumping it every single time I work out.
Desensitization.
Yeah. So then now when I need to go get my blood work done and kind of go through that or whatever. But as a 26-year-old guy, I feel like my free roaming testosterone or whatever when I'm
Serum.
is like way lower than what I want it to be. But then I think it would be kind of silly because it's like, man, you're pretty healthy. You're doing what you can do. So I'll decide of like, replacement or whatever, because I obviously can't do that either. But
Exactly.
yeah, sometimes I feel like, man, am I just releasing all my testosterone for these workouts, and then when I'm free roaming, I get none? And is there anything about that that you've heard or that makes sense?
I think, yeah. I think it's tied a lot to, like I said, with the military too. One thing, desensitization. You have gone through, and we talked about last time, however many of thousands of people that you wrestled in front of Madison Square Garden. You've had these big events, the military, the SEALs, these people, they have this desensitization when they get out. And there's something to that. I really do think. And a lot of times you're probably running very high cortisol. So you're very stressed state. Cortisol is very good, but in moderation. And so I honestly, blood work would tell a lot, because you're really, and it's interval-y too, but now your body is used to that, so it's having to dump more and more and more. I honestly think.
Same thing with rock stars and stuff, how they get so desensitized to the most insane adrenaline rush ever every night, and that's why they end up falling onto being drug addicts.
And that's what I was just going to wrap around to. My desensitization was when I was doing pain medications and heroin and all that shit. Like then, and it took a long time, Bryce, but it's starting to come around really well. Like small things that were supposed to bring me joy with family, birthday parties, whatever. It wasn't clicking, what's his name? The Free Solo.
Alex Honnold.
Alex Honnold. His pituitary gland in his brain is fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
He can't get a dopamine rush because he's not free flying from freaking El Cap.
Yeah.
Like that's high level. There's always a price, and we know that.
Of course.
And you said it earlier, like you're in this because you're passionate about it, but you're not in it for your health. Then there's this line, and I always tell my athletes, like, I only take on, in the past, I was taking on anything that was going to help me make a living. Mm-hmm. Now I've got to the point where I only want high-level athletes. That's what I want. And so I tell them, like, there's this line in between performance and health, and performance is far on the other side. Like, it doesn't mean you're healthy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So people have to realize that there's a lot more to it, man. A lot more to it.
There's a lot. And I feel like that's kind of, I think as you get older and stuff that I've been dealing with the most, that it gets really hard, right? Because in one breath, we are called to become more humble, more grateful, and I'm always preaching those things as well. And I'm like, and the idea that enough, and I posted this as a quote, and I really loved it. It wasn't mine, but it was somebody else's. But enough is never enough for the man that enough is too little. So
enough is never. Say it again.
Enough is never enough for the man that enough is too little. So it's the idea of being grateful for what you have right now, right? Yeah. And of course, continue to don't just bum your way through life or whatever. But you call yourself to try to be grateful for what you have in the moment and all this kind of stuff. But then it's also like, but you also got to try to be pursuing these goals. You got to be trying to become the best that you can and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times it's very hard to balance when you're pursuing, because your ego gets very inflated very quickly. Yeah. You become very prideful in your dreams. You become like, I'm the freaking man, and I'm going to take on what I need to take on to become the best fighter in the world. So then it gets really hard to figure out which one I need to be. And I think that's where a lot of athletes and stuff kind of talk about where their life gets very dark. Yeah. Whatever. Maybe we're seeing that with like Simone Biles and stuff, because we're called to be as humble as we can, and we want to be that. I think, you always want to be that, but then also you kind of lose ambition when you start becoming too humble. Yeah. And so then you're trying to battle all the two. And I think that's what we're called to do as humans, obviously, right? Yeah. Like, it's not just me, it's everybody, but you're trying to balance those two. And it gets really, really tough when we're talking about desensitization, all this kind of things where our hormones are just getting super out of whack.
And a lot of people can't relate. Like we talk about, it happened to Cam Newton, it happened to a bunch of these different people, but it's very hard to relate to wrestling at Madison Square Garden and doing these things. But I was just thinking about, I was listening to our podcast a few weeks ago, and how you talked about you're happy to some extent that you don't know where you'd be without those two losses. And that's what brought you back, and that's what's making you hungry right now, And so people have to realize, like, well, look at Conor McGregor. That's how I look at it. He came back with the first fight back with Cerrone, and it was a totally different Conor McGregor. Everybody thought he lost his chip, and then he fights Poirier, and it's Conor, And so riding that fine line between confidence and arrogance is a line very thinly drawn, but it's a weapon. I think that confidence has to be a weapon because everything you're going into. But I think the big divide is people can't relate to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also I think, so I really love the idea of prudence, and it's actually the first virtue. They call it kind of like the light of all the other virtues, because if you don't have prudence, which is the idea of having like rigid control of those two opposite things, where it's like, you know, if you're reckless and you're just super like, I can do whatever I want, then you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. But then if you're too reserved or whatever, then you're too passive or whatever. And I'm kind of missing some of the words right now, but it's pretty much the idea of finding the middle of the two. And that's what the idea of being prudent is in this virtuous world. And that's why they say it's the first virtue, that if you don't have a grip on it, then your grace can become idiotic, and then you're being abused rather than just being graceful or like whatever. And so I wish I could remember a little bit, but I get it. Yeah, I've kind of studied the idea of it a little bit more, and it's like, it makes sense, man. It's holding up the mirror and trying to keep the two things on both sides
at bay
on it and stuff. And that's the battle, right?
Yeah, man.
That's why it's
for sure. In wrestling and in MMA, to most of the mentally taxing things you can do. How was that, I guess, that testosterone, that adrenaline dump of one of the first places that had fans, having your MMA, how did that compare? You know, like now you've talked about it in the past, like it's a much different getting smacked in the mouth. Like how did that situation compare?
I was very surprised how similar the fight actually felt.
Really?
It was like 90% the exact same. Yeah. It was kind of crazy. And I think maybe it's because the last 4 or 5 years of my wrestling career, I put so much of that pressure, because it's like they're all pretty big matches, and it's kind of like do or die on this match. If you don't win this, it's not for a national title. If you don't win this, then you don't get to make it to the world team trials or whatever it is, right? So I feel like I started and I kind of always did, but you put so much pressure on yourself in wrestling even, that the fighting it almost felt the same, which was nuts. Yeah. But training, and especially at first, the anxiety that you would have going into practices because you didn't know what you're doing, and you know that you're about to get hit in the face, and you know you're about to get your legs chopped up, because at first your range is so bad, your eyes are so bad, you're not actually seeing. Everybody thinks it's like, yeah, man, I can sit down and throw one punch or whatever. Dude, you got to be fighting people for 50 minutes a day when you're in practice, right? And so you got to be able to control the range. You got to be able to, your eyes have to see things. So I remember even at first, you know, those couple Wednesdays especially, I would like go home and my head would kind of hurt a little bit because I felt like I was getting cracked a lot more. One, because I didn't know how to spar, so I was getting in way more of a fight with everybody else than it probably needed to be, because you're nervous, you're biting down, you're throwing way harder than you can. So I'd go home and I'd be like, dang, man, that's crazy. Like, I feel like I kind of got cracked today. I kept saying that. But then as time moves on, of course, you're still nervous. You're about to get in fights with people, but it gets less, maybe desensitized, but also your eyes get much better. You can see things, you can anticipate things. And the thing about fighting, and they say it all the time, is like the shots that you don't see are the ones that knock you out, and it's really freaking true. So I don't know what it is. When your brain can maybe anticipate what's about to happen, so your eyes just get better at seeing and dodging and missing things, rather than at first you're just like super tunnel visioned. And that's what happened in my fight, right? Like, it's my first actual fight, and I was super in love with the idea of trying to knock somebody out of my hands just because I haven't done it, and I didn't want to just go out there and wrestle because that's what most wrestlers do.
And everybody thought you were going to do that.
Yeah, which, you know, in one breath, my coaches and stuff, they're like, that was really cool to see you as a wrestler never being in an MMA fight and just running out there and just letting your hands go. Yeah. But they're like, but also don't forget.
Use your strength.
Yeah, you're a wrestler, man. So, like, don't run away from it too quick, you know what I mean, before you don't have your hands completely yet. Yeah. So it's like that. But, you know, I felt like I had progressed my striking and stuff very, very quickly, and I did want to showcase that, but also it was like a little bit crazy, you know. But I did, and I got just one track minded on I was going to throw this 1, 2, and this big overhand because I'd almost landed on him once or twice already in the fight. So then I was like just so tunnel focused on it. And then when I swung it, and then I got clipped that one time, bam, and dropped for a second. And so your eyes just have to get better. You have to start realizing things. And that's why you see some of the, most of the time when it's a 5-round fight with the 2 best guys in the world, a lot of times it doesn't end in a knockout. So how can you be fighting the best guy in the world for 25 minutes and not get knocked out, right? It's not like it's not like their heads are that much stronger than the next person's. Of course, some of them have some zombie mode in them, but a lot of them, man, they just can see things. You know what I mean? They're missing just a little bit, or making him miss just a little bit more than what we are. I'll be standing there and get smoked straight up the middle a couple times a day just because I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't move my head correctly. Where you watch the best guys, and that's not happening as often for them.
Yeah. That's the biggest learning curve, that vision.
I would say, range. I'd say range is really a big thing because as a wrestler, we're always touching and we're very close and we're like almost head to head.
You're trying to cut space down to some extent.
Yeah. So you're always like closing space in wrestling. And then in fighting, the guy, I would think he was so far away from me, and they're like, you're in range. And I'm like, what? I'm in punching range right now, and they're like, you're in range. I'm like, oh, man, you feel so far away. Yeah. So that was really crazy. And then the other main learning curve that it's kind of a joke, but it's the most real thing as a wrestler is people not having shoes on. It completely takes your takedowns and makes them completely different because in a lot of college wrestling, high-level wrestling, you shoot and then you finish from the knee below because people are so good at scrambling, doing all this kind of stuff. And you're finishing from knee below when they have a shoe on so you can keep a hold of people's feet. And MMA, it's
sweaty.
It's sweaty. There. It's gone. And next thing you know, if they get their back to the cage, if they do this, and they're just slipping out from you all the time. And you're like, whoa, I can't even get a takedown right now. Yeah. And you get really frustrated. So those are like the 2 simple ideas that I always say were really freaking surprising to me.
Reflecting off of your fight, because obviously I'm sure you guys broke that down. You're watching your shit, making sure you're getting the looks that you wanted to get. What were your biggest takeaways? What do you need to improve on, and what do you want to push for your next fight?
Kind of like I said, like don't fall too in love with the hands, right? One of the main things that you can do as a wrestler is you can go out there, you can strike, you can get a takedown, tire him out a little bit, pop back up on your feet, and now his striking, because he got in a wrestling match that maybe he hasn't wrestled as much in his life, most likely has not, right? So then worry about your striking. So there's kind of a lot of that where it's like, don't just fall in love with the wrestling and don't just fall in love with the striking. Make sure you be a mixed martial artist and do both of them. So, that was kind of one of our ideas that we're doing. Make sure we go out, throw hands, crack them with a jab, whatever it is, and then go into a takedown, and then maybe come back up and then throw your hands again, and that's when you can showcase knocking people out if you would like. Also, of course, like that guy can punch you in the face too, so you got to be a little more careful. That was the first time that button ever got touched on me, and my legs just gave out for a second. My mind was fine, but your legs just gave out for a second, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, so. And that was also because it was kind of this windshield wiper punch that was thrown from the hip, so you don't really see it. And I got stuck just switching stances right in front of him. So it was just perfect little mess up on my part. So, yeah, that. And then, the fight was only 3 minutes. So we actually didn't get quite as much as, maybe that you would want. Or, maybe you got as much as you want for your first fight. So, yeah, we've been breaking down a lot of little stuff like that. Of course, I was frustrated after I got clipped that one time, so maybe my ground and pound was maybe a little too reckless if somebody had a little bit better bottom. So like little stuff like that where it's like, hey,
energy preservation.
Yeah, man. Like make sure you aren't doing something too stupid. Yeah. Because it's a fight, man. It doesn't take a lot to shut your lights off.
Yeah.
And
I think that's good experience that even it wasn't a situation you wanted to be in, but getting clipped early.
For sure.
That's huge.
Yeah, a lot of people, that have been in it, they were just like, that was about as good as a first fight that you can get into. You went out there, you threw your hands, you got clipped, you recovered, but you still won. Yeah, but then you still won pretty quickly. So it's not like you're, out there
it wasn't a close match.
Getting your ass beat for 10, 15 minutes, getting in a war for your first fight, but also you learned a lot of good stuff. So it was a fun experience.
Sweet, man. I know you keep up with them a little bit. Bo is getting into fighting now, right? Where's he training?
Okay, yeah. So American Top Team actually kind of built partially Bo and State College a gym.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, okay. So Bo has some type of, I don't know, some type of ownership or some type of ties with that gym. I don't know how that contract went, but so they're actually building a gym up in State College, and so they're going to start pushing for that, which is going to be really cool for him, and really, I think, obviously State College area is the best wrestlers in the world, so that's going to be pretty cool to kind of watch. Yeah, kind of watch what can happen with that. And then also, I think he's going to try to fight maybe in September, and I think he's going to try to do an amateur fight, which I think is really cool and smart. I'm not really sure what amateur is going to sign up to fight Bo Nickel, but if they can get somebody, that's going to be great for him. So I think maybe in the next couple of months we'll be able to see his debut.
Damn.
But I don't know for sure.
Exactly.
That is not out.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he has that.
That's just hearsay.
Yeah.
That's just hearsay.
Hearsay. Allegedly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a pretty cool pipeline, dude. You can get some really big ballers out of there.
Yeah, for sure.
I had no idea that was a thing. Last time we talked about this, I thought this would kind of be cool now with what's transpired in the last 2 months. NIL, name, image, and likeness, man. Me watching from the outside, you had a big, inadvertently, you had a big part in this. Building a personality, building a brand outside of who you are as a wrestler was very fucking interesting. With Misfits and No Tomorrow Now, like, you're really building that stuff. But what do you think about that? What had a long time coming?
Okay, first and foremost, amazing.
Yeah.
Finally, geez, how can you not let these kids make money off their own name and likeness? So I think that's an amazing step. I'm super glad that that's happening. Second thing, it is the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
So for me to have a lot of maybe even guidance, which I'm not really the guy. I'm not really the guy to guide it or whatever. But I just don't know exactly where, I see so many kids, and no disrespect to these kids, but man, if you're just a national qualifier, or you're just a this guy, or you're just a that guy, I'm not really sure win more. Okay, it's not like I was national champ, but win more, because I've had people reach out and ask me for help and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, also like, I'm not. You
got to do the job first.
Yeah, I'm not really sure who you even are. So for sure, that's one aspect that needs to. I think it's kind of funny, and I mean no disrespect to these guys. You can make a lot of money off your name and likeness, not being that good of a player if you do it correctly. And it's not just becoming a superstar. It's, you start making your own training, and you sell those for $60 or whatever. But now you can train little kids. You can have these clinics. You can do it. So there's a lot of different ways that these kids can make money, and there's a lot of money to be made. But some of these people, I'm just not really sure like what they're getting signed by. They're getting signed by these weird management companies. They're getting signed by a lot of different people, and I'm really nervous for them, because I think that they're signing way more of they're kind of just re-signing to the NCAA, and they're just in like, somebody's going to trick them into, here, man, I'll give you $5,000 right now. As a college athlete, that's cool money. They're going to be excited. And then it's like the management game, so I'm
like the music industry.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm a little bit nervous for some of these guys doing it. And it's just kind of funny. It's like the Wild West. So I'm kind of sitting back and trying to see exactly what kind of unfolds the next little bit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, even, you see Barstool, and they're signing all these athletes. And
Bravo Young. I mean, wrestling took over.
And he just was like, and it's not even a thing. He literally, like, I don't know, Dave Portnoy just said, like, oh, let's sign some college athletes. And he's like, I don't know what we're doing with them, though. Yeah. So they just, like, I don't know. Hopefully they didn't sign too much of anything away, and I don't think they did. I'm pretty sure they just made him like, hey, you're a Barstool athlete just because it looks cool. But
there's some cash.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'd be surprised, because I don't think they know exactly what they're going with it. But it's going to be interesting. I'm very stoked for those guys. Some of these kids are going to make some buku bucks in college.
Insane.
And as they should, because in college you have a lot of eyes on you. And when you leave college, no matter how good you're doing, I mean, obviously – but, like, even if you're in the NFL and stuff like that, college athletes rule the world at certain moments of the time. So those guys should be getting money for that.
I'd say the popularities, even maybe this is just bias for me, but I like watching college sports and college football much better than a lot of
people do.
Yeah, man.
And I think,
it's the stigma, it's the culture behind it, I think, to some extent.
And, people like their college pride. It's fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, with people, you went to UW, you were a premier wrestler there, not your cases per se. I don't want to get into some stupid shit, but how were some of these lines blurred as a college athlete making it by? Were some of these bent? How could those be bent before these NIL laws? Because with me,
I mean, I know for sure, like, you could bend, like, little small things, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, man, this guy can't buy you dinner. I know people are accepting dinners and stuff like that, right? But, like, there was a case where you can't even accept dinners from people. You're sitting there and somebody wants to buy you dinner and they
nuts,
can't.
dude.
So, like, that was pretty crazy. I think most people followed the rules pretty well, but wrestling had a little weird, and some of these other sports, they kind of had a little weird rule bends because you could still do clinics and make a pretty hefty amount of money because it's the going rate. So you could still clear. I don't even want to say you could still clear pretty good money on clinics, but you couldn't. And there was just like weird rules where it's like you're not the clinician, you're not the whatever camp clinician. You're just like a helper, and that's all you would have to do, and then you could get paid pretty much whatever you wanted. So there was a lot of weird stuff like that I'm not really sure exactly what the rules were, but like it was kind of okay because it was in this gray area. So you could still make pretty good money off doing that. But the other bending stuff, I really haven't heard too much.
Yeah.
I really haven't.
Well, in those situations, the school's still getting their cut.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. And prior to, that was what's most important. They had to get what they needed first, which was shitty. But that's just how it goes, man.
It's a weird rule, man. You know, we always kind of say it, and I don't mean it in the form of actual slavery, but it was in a way of form of slavery. You trick these young kids to come on a campus, get free food, free housing, and no money, and then they get
girls, everything you could ask for.
Yeah, and then these colleges are making huge money off them. So it was a little bit weird. And I think this is the best way. I don't know if colleges need to be paying students, because I don't know how exactly you would divvy that up.
Yep.
But if somebody must pay you $1 million for putting on a pair of shoes when you're outside of the field, then I think you should gladly take that and walk away.
Before we transition out of MMA, I have a few things to wrap up. But what's your overarching goals, brother, for MMA? Like what's the roadmap within the next few years for you? You got some other fights rolling up, and then from there.
Yeah, man. So with fighting and stuff, of course, I always say God willing, I have a lot more time in this game, and it lasts hopefully about 10 years. You know, 35ish. I think that would be a reasonable time to get out of a sport. But for me, man, I want to be a world champion. You want to be this famous guy, not really, but like you want to do the right things now. You want to make these good habits and become their slave. And when you become their slave, hopefully those good habits bring you to where you want to be. And where you want to be is the best.
Yeah.
I don't want to get beat up in a fight. I don't want to lose that many fights. I want to become the best. I'm willing to lose fights. I'm not afraid of losing. A lot of people are so afraid of losing in the MMA world, and I get it because it's your career and you got to protect it, and they like more unblemished records and stuff like that. But, man, this idea that everybody's so afraid of losing kind of kills me. I'm like, you're just being I don't know, you're putting too much of an emphasis on losing, and I swear it's going to make you not win as many. Your career's not going to go as far and stuff. So, of course, manage your career. But also, it's a loss, man. Who cares? You lost a freaking cage fight. You can get up and still brush it off and get going. So, for me, I think that's kind of where I'm at now, because I think I do a very good job at becoming a slave to my good habits for certain amounts of time. Yeah. And I need to do it for longer periods of time, if not year-round, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever you say. So hopefully pursue that and then continue to just become – like I said, man, sports are just a vehicle to just make you a more disciplined, a better human, a more sacrifice, more graceful, whatever it is, right? All these virtuous acts that I'm trying to be as a human, I think wrestling is a vehicle that really helped me do that, and I think MMA is a vehicle now that's going to help me do that too because, it's pretty easy to just – sit back and start drinking beer every day and, just do whatever you want. But for me, it helps me to have a worthwhile goal. And that worthwhile goal is to just wake up and do the things that I hate but love it.
Yeah, exactly. And the overarching goal, impact life, like completely impact life. You broke down the wrestling camp with that. And it's really cool that you've been able to build that platform and now transfer it into a completely different sport and go from there, man. It's really cool to see. And from there, I had a few questions for you too. We talked about you're possibly setting up Airbnb, correct? Yeah. So how did that transpire? Because I'm selfishly asking because I'm getting ready to buy my first rental, but Dickinson ain't a Airbnb place right now.
It might be though.
You never know.
That's the craziest part about Airbnb, man. Is and I have a lot of people. A lot of people are very scared of it for a lot of different reasons, right? You got to put another $6,000 to $10,000 into this house to furnish it and get it ready and try to set it up because one, you're not just a rental anymore. You are a hotel and you are in the business of service. Yeah. And that's what you really are. So I'm going to be leaning on some people that are going to help me with that so that I make sure I have less headaches at the beginning. But, once again, there's a cost to that as well. So for me, right, it kind of worked out. The property that I bought is the upstairs is normal living, and then the downstairs has its own kitchen as well with its own exit. So I can run it as a duplex. But, of course, it is not a duplex. So I run into certain little things that that you don't really think about. There's only heat control in the upstairs, then the downstairs doesn't. And there's ways around that, you know what I mean? There you have shared laundry room. That's one thing. The hot water heater is downstairs, not upstairs. So if a pilot light goes out, you better have somebody downstairs that can do it. So it worked out really great. I lived the first year and a half that I've owned this property. Great tenants, and so they worked out. But that's not always going to be it. They work together, and it was amazing. So I started pursuing the idea of doing Airbnb, and I'm going to set up my Airbnb on the upstairs for now, and I think it'll give me a nice feeler to see how successful it'll be. This guy's ran, the numbers and helped me ran comps and numbers, and it's actually looking like it could be it could go very well. And I think it would be pretty fun. I think partially I'm chasing a little bit of the rush of it too, where you have a month that if Cheyenne Frontier Days, it's only a half a mile away. So it just happened, but hopefully next year you're going to clear anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 in a week. In 1 week on half your property, right? So I think doing some of that and just seeing certain months open up, hopefully it's going to give you a heart attack if they're all bad months. But, I'm once again, man, I'm okay with just trying and figuring out some of the headaches, and I think it can go very well. You see a lot of people on the internet right now that it used to be, you have to have 20 properties to get to a place where you have $10,000 passive coming in a month. And now these people are doing off two or three properties that are Airbnb successful. They're clearing $10,000 a month and doing really big numbers. So obviously, who knows if this property could do anything like that, but that would be pretty amazing if you can get to the point where you have 5 rental properties and you can clear that type of money. That would be.
It's a lot of people are going to it now, man. And I have, Cheyenne Frontier Days, people that don't know, a huge event, but I have a buddy that owns one just right outside of Sturgis. Dude, he makes his year's worth in that 2-week period. It's astronomical. And and it's not, it's a business. You upcharge during those times. It's just how it goes. I am actually doing something very similar. And that one's in Cheyenne, correct?
Yeah.
That okay, cool. So are you kind of traveling? Are you remodeling that, kind of going through that right now?
Yeah, and then that would also be another part that I like about it is so that when I go back to Cheyenne, I could also stay in it when I want to. Yeah, so that's really nice. Because it's kind of crazy, you just buy a property and then you just never touch it. And the other thing that a lot of people don't think about but also helps is renters tear your shit up.
Always.
Bad. No matter how nice the renters they are, they're going to tear this shit up. The good thing about Airbnb is it's getting cleaned. This property is going to get cleaned every 2-3 days. So it's going to be a pristine property all the time. It's getting cleaned professionally. Mm-hmm. And also, if something gets broken, you have your insurance, but also Airbnb has up to $1 million in insurance towards your property. So I think it could be really good. I will obviously share with you. And, if anybody that's listening runs a bunch of Airbnbs and got some insight and want to help us out, let me know.
For sure. For sure, man. I would love to pick your brain and your mentors.
Are you trying to buy your property here?
Yep. So actually almost the same exact scenario. They're not considered duplexes again, but there's 4 of them in town. I'm actually heading to vacation in 2 weeks, but next week we're going to view them. But a few of them ranging from 5 down to 3 bedrooms, two up, one down, a few different scenarios, but same exact concept is right now we live in we were doing like kind of a rent to buy. So every money, every dollar we put down to, it's my wife's grandpa is going towards a future mortgage. Well, we're like, this isn't for us. So we found one just right by the university, and it would be a duplex of some sort, has 3 bedrooms upstairs for us, 2 downstairs. So it would be, that'd be the ideal scenario. But for me, I was thinking almost a little bit more long-term of, and it sucks because they're terrible ass tenants, but college kids.
I know.
Having them downstairs. That's like the hardest group, dude.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So I think you for sure should, see what type of success that an Airbnb can have here, because I think it can surprise you, especially with it being in college
and
being
the
close.
oil.
Yep.
You could do like a little bit longer term oil field, like 2 weeks.
Yep. And
right?
then that's the other thing that people have found out. If you have it furnished and stuff, right, and if you're willing to make it cute, you can do furnished finders where it's long-term nurses that come in there and they pay a premium.
And shit.
Yep. Or travel nurses and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different ways that I think you can go about it. Obviously, your house hacking, which is an amazing tool that people use in real estate. And then, man, the Airbnb market is crazy.
Yeah, dude. Everybody's going to that right now.
Yeah. Which, who knows what that's going to be like in the next 5 years, how diluted the market might get with everybody jumping onto it. But it's just like anything, man. It's a lot more front work, especially, and then you got to keep your hand on it more than you do if it's an actual renter. And then people are just scared of things like that as well. So if you're willing to take the risk, and I don't even know if it's a risk, but if you're willing to put the work in, then I don't know.
You got to ride the wave.
I think so.
Same thing with other types of investing, but you got to ride the wave. It's I never thought about like travel nurses and all that. That could be huge. We got a huge hospital here too. Also into riding different waves that people are kind of scared of, like crypto investing. I know you get into a little bit of investing, correct? Yeah. So they actually name dropped whoever's Discord group or whatever on your fight.
Yeah, so Michael Chiesa, he's like top 5 in the UFC right now. He was the one commentating for the fight, and we're in the same crypto Discord.
Oh, fuck.
And it's Dylan Palacio started that with a couple other people. So, and they have a very successful Discord. A lot of those guys are, day trading and going pretty hard on that. But yeah, man, crypto's been very nice to me. For sure, I'm not a guy that's turned $10,000 into a 10 million by any means. It's been very more, I would say, like a reasonable,
moderate
growth, but not even moderate, man. Like I had an investment that went up 400% that I cashed out on. That was a nice investment to even start off with. So that's not normal at all, actually. So you know what I mean. But now it's starting to get to the point where it's kind of chilled back out, I think, a little bit. But now it's kind of going up. I think it's been pretty fun. I've been very fortunate to, when I was making my money those first 2 years out, I was still living my rent was $300 a month in Wyoming. I was living as a college kid for 2 years. In Jersey, it was free, so I haven't paid rent for 2 years. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have anything like that. So I was taking all my money and just diversifying it, in long-term stock portfolios, a little bit of day trading I've done, and then now I have crypto, and now I have real estate. So hopefully I'm setting myself up, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
So hopefully it all pays off in the long run. As of right now, I'm not breaking no banks by any means, but
exactly.
Just trying to set those guidelines. And I mean, how have you still been day trading?
Yeah. A lot of people, and I think we're in the same track, like, all this work, this is what the very successful used to do, And so like you hope that you're kind of achieving that path, and one day it will pay off to some extent, I day and swing trade the stock market itself, and then I just long-term invest in crypto. To be honest, reason being is my company, Next Level and the Chapel, they own assets as well. So I don't want to get in the day trading with that, because the capital gains tax and all that stuff. So I just long term to that shit, dude. Capital gains gets you bad, dude.
Bro.
Bad.
That and the gas fees on crypto, I don't understand how you even make money half the time.
Dude. And people don't really, they just throw money in and expect to, just because it's volatile, I got into the 2 days before COVID, March 2019, we closed our gym on the 19th of March. On the 15th of March, I believe, the market already crashed, and I put upwards of almost 10 G's into Tesla, average buy of 100. So that's been awesome. And I'm just letting it ride. I'm just letting it go.
100%.
And then I got into crypto. My cousin, or I guess it would be my family member, I don't even know, but he got me into crypto a lot and started my original purchase, obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum. I got heavy and deep into XRP. It's either black or white for people on XRP, but a project to look into, because we talking back to real estate is today, the eviction moratorium just ended, dog.
It's done.
There's going to be some freaking opportunity.
Yeah, man.
Especially where you're living.
Yeah,
here,
especially
maybe not, you know.
Oh, I think it's going to be everywhere, man. I think it's going to go crazy, you know, with creative financing. If people don't know what that is about, you know, it's like they're subject to. So you're taking people's mortgages over subject to what it already was.
Yeah.
So you're helping people out that are in eviction, and that, you know, rather than they have that on their credit in life forever, because that's like a big old freaking stamp that you walk around with. You know, you got these sub 2 ones. You can do seller finances. It's going to get really awesome. And, you know, hopefully we can find different ways to be creative and take over these homes in, you know, in a reasonable way. It's
going to be some huge opportunity.
Yeah. I don't think anybody knows what's happening, but it's going to be fun.
No, I think it has to happen. But how I look at it is, I think this stock market, the real estate market, potentially going to crash is going to be the catalyst, and it's a good crash. It's to some extent. I think it's going to be the catalyst to this overinflated stock market we're in right now. It's going to have awesome buying opportunities. We're going to be able to get dirt cheap houses. For people that have done their homework and really starting to get into it, I think it's going to pay off, man.
I think so too. And like we said, hopefully we have done enough of our knowledge in
the
real
front
estate
work
and stock and all that kind of stuff that it will pay off in these next little bit. Obviously, you know, the value of the dollar and stuff is kind of weird. We're going to see what the heck happens with all that.
Scares the shit out of me.
Because like you said, man, we are in a bubble of some sort. I don't know if it's not real estate, if it's not the inflated stock market, if it's not cash becoming what it is. Okay, I don't know what it is exactly, but we are in some type of bubble.
Yeah.
We have not felt enough of the repercussions of what has gone on in this last year and a half of time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to get very unique, I guess, and buckle up.
Yeah, I ask some of my older family members, some of my ex-clients, a few 60, 70-year-olds, and I said, hey, like, you've lived through it all. Like, you've gone through many wars. You've gone through all this stuff. I was like, is this the craziest time that you ever lived through? They're like, hands down. Yeah,
man, I used to be so on the path that how dare anybody complain of living in anywhere from like 2015 to 20 now, because, man, we have cell phones in our pocket. I can have DoorDash delivered to me. I don't have to do anything and all this kind of stuff. But then I've kind of, you know, I think I was being a little bit too grateful for what I was living in this idea. And then I started having conversations, and I think we are living in a very weird time, especially. So like anybody that was born in pretty much the early 1990s, you know, 90 to 95 or whatever, our whole life has been kind of flipped on its head every couple of years, because you had 9/11 in 2001, which created this crazy.
We were old enough, right?
Right. Like, and of course, like, we're not old enough to like know what was going on, but our world was flipped on its head again. And then there's this, you know, industrial material or military industrial complex that goes on with that, and we don't even know why we're in these wars that are over in the Middle East for 15 years that everybody claims that we needed to get out of most of the time. And then 2008, the market crash, the housing market. So then that flipped it on its head, and it flipped a lot of our parents' money on their head, or whatever it is, whoever's in that. And then there was maybe one other thing. And then now there's COVID.
The big kahuna.
And something else. So it's like, man, we've kind of lived through a lot of crazy events. And, you know, we're just going like, oh, whatever. This is what we do. We just live life. And, you know, all the older people are like, you ungrateful little kids and all this kind of stuff. But it's actually real, man. Yeah. We've been living through some weird times, and we all have college degrees that a lot of times don't mean shit anymore. That are worthless, and that we had to pay a lot of money for. We can't afford homes on a normal salary anymore. Both you and your wife better have pretty freaking good salaries for you to do anything with these So when that used to not be the case, and So to the old people out there, I know some of us are soft, and I get it, and I get mad at a lot of people in this world too. But give us a break too.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of been going through some weird times, and we have not been given quite the greatest hand.
And our generation has actually really proven themselves, though, too. Like, really flipping the millennial Gen Z on its head. Like, a lot of us have definitely gone through some shit, man. My biggest thing that you alluded to is, like, I don't trust this. I don't trust the U.S. dollar right now. I don't trust all that. Like, originally, my parents, and I think both of your parents were originally blue collar, just regular working class, right? Yeah, yeah. My parents, completely middle class, great people, worked their asses off. But my inclination was always save all the money you can and put it into account. Right now, you're losing a shit ton of money if you're just putting it in a bank account. So my biggest thing is like I've been stacking cash for real estate, and then I throw every freaking dollar I have into the into crypto usually.
For sure.
You know, you're losing money if you're not.
Yeah, it gets hard though, especially for me in my situation, because, you know, I stack and I put it elsewhere, but then I also have a nice reserve of cash ready to go because I don't have a job.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, but you know what I mean? I'm
got a
just
career,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not just out here just like having a normal, you know,
9 to 5.
Yeah, W-9 or W-2 or whatever, you know, a W-2. And so I'm always like, crap, I better save some money and make sure because this is what happened. I decided to go to MMA because I thought COVID was just going to be a month or two thing. So I left a base salary in New Jersey to go start chasing this fighting career and stuff like that. So I left it because I was like, I'll be able to do clinics. COVID's going to be 2 months. I'll be fine. I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to do that. And then, boom, it just lasted for like a year and a half. So I was like, oh, crap. I didn't ride. This wave kind of hit me a little bit different than I thought it was going to hit. But, you know, once again, I was fortunate enough to have money in the right places. But, geez, man, talk about anxiety. And I know everybody felt anxiety this last year and stuff. But, man, that was crazy. Because, you know, I thought, oh, man, I got out of college. Great first year, great second year. What are we doing this third year? Like, I wasn't quite ready for that.
It's a weird time.
Or I was, but not. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody was.
I think the hardest, everything's been impacted, but I think kids just graduating college, it smacked. Man, that you don't, your loans are starting to come out. You're starting to get all this stuff acquiring, and it's like, oh shit, I'm not making enough money. You know?
What kind of job do we encourage kids to go get right now?
All these working class, you know?
You know what I mean? Like, it's super hard to like really push a kid in a certain direction right now because the world is getting so automated in some aspects. It's going these ways direct. And I know there's work to be had out there and stuff. Like, you know, my dad, he's a boss of a construction site. He says he can't get anybody to stay with him. They either don't pass a drug test or they work for a week and leave. So I understand there is a lot of work out there that nobody's chasing. So I'm not saying there's no jobs for anybody, but careers. I'm not sure what type of careers we should be pushing kids to chase anymore because everything is kind of flipped on its head. Like
it used to be that the university was perfect and lined up with a career and you're instantly inserted into that industry. Nowadays, with how fast technology evolves, the jobs are evolving well before your 4 years is up. So this communications, or a lot of people, luckily I love exercise science. Like that's my shit, biomechanics and strength and conditioning. So I did it for that. A lot of people jump into it because they're like, oh, this will be easy. I'll just get this or this communications degree. It's not setting us up. It set us all up in the Industrial Revolution, not the technology, you know, or the information revelation or whatever. But it's just not a system that works. And I have a little sister who's going to be a senior this year. And she was like, I have to get the scholarship. I have to go to college. I was like, don't worry about that. Like for me and for you, my biggest recommendation for somebody, say somebody wants to possibly get an MMA or even just choose a traditional path of investing or whatever. Your biggest asset is your time at that point. Like, don't get shoved into college because of the experience. Both you and I know that's probably some of the best times of our lives, but don't get pushed into it for this just because. Use your time. Go ask somebody who's successful and be like, I will help you. Here's my time. That's a connection. You know what you need to do now, you know, instead of just going into a broken system.
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously I got a degree in business management. So if I become a business owner, of course you have
the background.
You are using that type of thing. But I said one of my main goals is I never have to use my college degree.
Hell yeah.
I hope I never have to go actually apply for that type of job or whatever, which I'm totally down for, whatever.
Yeah.
If the world smacks me in my face, I got to go do it. I'm in, you know what I mean? But yeah, I always joke about it. Like, and that's what, kids got to just be careful. If you want to go to college, make sure you understand how much money $100,000 is.
Yeah.
Because when you're 18, these kids don't understand it. Shoot, I see 23-year-olds that don't understand. They sign on for these $150,000 loans for school, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I just want them to be a little more well understanding of what that means. Yeah, well-versed of how much money that actually means before you are doing that for a job you might freaking hate.
Yeah, exactly. You were blessed in your scenario with scholarships. I graduated with zero debt, luckily. I mean, it's a D2 NAI, but that's what it is, you know?
It's a college degree.
Usually I end the podcast with asking people, if money wasn't required, if money wasn't like a big important thing, what would you be doing? But luckily, you're doing it. Like a lot of people, it's like, I'm a teacher, whatever, not banging on teachers, but I'm a union worker and I would do this. Well, I think you've got to do that. Am I correct? Like this is what you want to do, man.
Yeah, for sure. But of course, you know, my career is only going to be so long. So, man, if money wasn't a thing, I would like to do something in the fact where I get to go maybe play golf in the summer.
Yeah.
I get a snowmobile in the winter, and I get to impact kids 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Something like that. Run a club, but have freedom in the day to do the things that I like. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, man.
I think that would be pretty freaking cool.
Huge.
Whether it's, you know, taking those kids on snowmobiling trips or taking people, you know, doing, I don't want to be an outfitter per se, but a little bit like that.
Getting in that
Do
that
it when
element.
you want to, not when you have to.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do with real estate and all this kind of stuff, right? Set yourself up passively to the point where now you have the freedom to now do the things that you actually like to do and want to do. I think a lot of times people that do get into investing, they say they are chasing freedom, and then the next thing they know, they are trapped by money and never leave it, which some of these people, they love that, and that's fine. I get it. But also, people that are investing or people that are making hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year, remember why you were chasing it, and don't let your freedom go just because you think making the most money is making you the baddest dude because, I do this, I do
that.
that.
Live that lifestyle.
Yeah, which I get. You know, I haven't been trapped in it yet, so who am I to judge and say what it would be like if I make $1 million a year? But I really do feel a little bit bad for people that chase freedom and then they end up becoming more of a slave to something than maybe they were even before.
Yeah, I felt that human greed. I mean, you probably have too into investing. It's like, it's at 10, it's gonna go to 20, and then you tank. You know, human greed is a bitch, man.
We are so silly, greedful, prideful little monkeys.
Yeah, dude, that's all we are. My overarching goal is real estate, all this stuff. I have my own goals and ambitions, but my wife wants to be a mother, and she's gonna be badass at that. I want it to be where you don't need to go to work for 2 years, bro. Like that's what I want to get to. I mean, that makes it my goal. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually feel like that with, you know, the idea of proposing to my girlfriend and stuff. And I know this is not true, and she tells me this every time, but as a man, sometimes I think like I don't want to marry you until I can provide that type of life.
It's almost a responsibility.
It is, and I know it's not real. I know I can marry you and we don't have to have kids for 4 or 5 years, and we could do whatever. I know that is not the case, but deep down in my brain, I'm like, you don't deserve to marry this woman until you can take care of her without her working so that she can have your kids, your guys' kids, and she can take care of them the way that you need them to be taken care of. And that doesn't mean that I want her just to be a stay-at-home mom and doesn't get any freedom or whatever. Like, because that happens to a lot of people too. They make their wives prisoners to them and their money. So I pray that never happens as well, and I have a good grip on being but like we said, that's a freedom. I want to be able to be around my kids too, because I'm a real selfish guy with attention from I would imagine from my kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, hey, you're going to hang out with me too.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly.
I think as men, step up, boys.
Yep. It's primal to want to be able to take care of that family. You know what I mean? It's it's ingrained for sure, man. Man, we got a social to get to.
Yeah.
Honestly, this happened on a flippin' whim. Reached out to you, and I'm glad it's been able to work out, man. It helps your lifestyle. It helps what you want to do. It supports, your career, your life, and it's a blast getting to have you out here, man.
Well, thank you so much for having me, man. I look up to you a lot in the fact that you are doing exactly what you want to do with your gym and this podcast. Every time I get on podcasts, it does two things for me. It makes me very excited because I don't want to go to the grave with so much unsaid. I want my thoughts and my ideas to get out to people, even if you don't want to listen to them. You don't have to, but I think it does a lot for you because you get to figure things out as you speak them out into existence, because that's pretty much the only way that your ideas can actually start figuring themselves out is if you're actually bouncing them off people. So I love doing it, but then it also makes me feel really mad at myself because I've always talked about at least starting some type of podcast or something where at least I'm getting on something a couple times a week for 10 to 15 minutes, even whether it could be an hour a day or whatever. So it's a good mad because I'm like, Bryce, get after it, do what you want to do.
Therapy, man.
It is, man.
Our generation was like the last generation. I didn't get a phone until I was in high school, bro. Like we can still have these conversations. This podcast originally started having awkward ass short conversations with high school kids, man. Yeah. It was like, hey, you want a scholarship here? My name's Colby Wortman. I go to Trinity High School. It's like, ooh, this is gonna be rough. You know, like it is. We can have this conversation. I learned so much. Like you can take stuff from me, I can take stuff from you, and it's like 100. It's been a calendar year since last time we did this, and a lot of things have changed. Got a rental, we're getting in, we got our new fight, you're progressing down your path with your soon-to-be fiance and all this stuff, you know, like that's cool, man. Well,
we're talking to completely different people, man. I heard somebody say it, and I'm not saying that reincarnation is a thing, so let's not get lost in that, but somebody goes, reincarnation's happening in front of your face every day. He goes, I'm a different person than I was yesterday. I'm a different person than I was last year. Yeah. And therefore, you're always talking to a different person, and it's not a different person, then that's probably worse, right? So it's
doing something wrong.
It's really amazing that we get to do this, you know, a year later, and we are obviously grounded in the same human, but we are completely different humans, and we're in different walks of life, and some good, probably some bad, and that's just how life works. And
how it rolls.
Keep loving each other and pushing on.
Yes, sir. Hey, where can people reach you on
social media? It's bmeredith001. I'm really not on Twitter or Facebook anymore. I hate it.
It's faded away, man.
Yeah, man, I hate it. So mostly just Instagram, you know, TikTok. I try to get in TikTok for a little bit, but all my videos were just like getting taken down all the time. Yeah. I don't know how to do it. So it's hard. Man, just on Instagram. Love you guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to our dumbasses speak for an hour straight. If you are still here, you're crazy, and we love you.
Yeah, the hundreds of people, I don't know what the hell they're doing, dude. Especially watching video and shit.
That's a lot of people, man.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Bro, if one person sits down and listens to your dumbass talk for an hour, not you.
We're on a trend. No, I'll take that.
Yeah, man, that's a flattering thing. And so if you are, we love you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. That is the end of the episode of Next Level Radio. Check out Bryce on Instagram. We're going to go have some pizza and beer. So
Misfits rule the world. Out.
Yes, sir. There it is.